Hello everyone and welcome to a special episode of Godsaw's Turnbuckle, the wrestling video podcast I run over here on youtube.com/Godsaw. It is a special episode because, well, it is time to review Elimination Chamber, and that's what we're going to be primarily doing. But before we get into that, since we did not do a traditional episode of Godsaw's Turnbuckle, to kind of go over a couple things. I mean, mainly news-wise, it wasn't a huge week in the terms of stuff that you could really talk about or anything to go along with it. We could delve deeply into a couple of other ones, such as the Jimmy Uso being arrested over this past week, or the alleged affair between Corey Graves and Carmella. The one with Carmella and Corey Graves, I'm not going to talk about much because that is a personal matter between Corey Graves, Carmella, and Corey Graves' wife. On that one, if that is truthfully the case and everything. So not going to talk much about that. Because again, it's a personal matter. The thing with Jimmy Uso, that was definitely, especially with what went down in this particular show, that it was a little bit more of an interesting story, but not much to really talk about based off of what they had done before. It happened with Jay not too long ago. And nothing much really came about it, and I don't imagine much is going to come about it again in this one. The one thing I did want to talk about, though, was that earlier this week, Pedro Morales, a former WWF champion, which I believe it was still called, you still had the 3 W's instead of just the 2 back when he was champion, passed away this week. And it's one of those things that you don't hear too much about Pedro, because he ends, even though he had a 3-year title reign, if you take a look back at it, he had a 3-year title reign. It was wildly popular. It was even shown that he sold out Madison Square Garden 21 different times, which is a huge feat back in that day, because Madison Square Garden was considered massively huge for the terms of an arena. So it's a lot bigger of accomplishment back then than it would be considered today or anything on that one. So it's definitely something worth talking about at least a little bit, even though I haven't really watched any of his matches, to at least pay a little bit of respect. It was interesting that he was kind of, in the terms of big baby faces, because the Northeast territory, or Vince McMahon Sr.'s territory, even for a while with our current Vince Jr., it was a very heavy babyface company and territory for that one. So he was between both Bruno's runs, which Bruno had the 8-year run, and then you had the 3-year run afterwards as well. In between there, he took that title off of Ivan Koloff, who took the title off of Bruno. So 21 days later, after Koloff had taken the title from Bruno, Pedro Morales took the title from Koloff, and had a very popular run in the territory for over 3 years with that title. Again, he's one of the few that have had a 1,000-day run with that title. In the terms of a 1,000-day run, I mean consecutive run on that one. He did when they were going to put the title back on Bruno when he came back. He did end up losing the title to Stan Stasiak, again in the Madison Square Garden show. With both of those ones, they were popular baby faces to the point that when Bruno lost, they did not announce that, or they did announce that Koloff had won the title in front of the crowd, but they did not present him with the title in front of the crowd. And when Stan Stasiak apparently won from Pedro Morales, he was not even announced as the winner of the title and was not presented the title out there. So very interesting facts. I'm not fully read up on Pedro Morales, but I wanted to at least pay at least a decent amount of, as much respect as I possibly could, for a guy who had a very good popular run with the title in the area for that. And I wanted to at least talk about it a little bit with about as much as I knew about everything with it as well. So with that being said, since I wanted to talk about those briefly before going into Elimination Chamber, just because we didn't do a traditional episode of God Sauce Turnbuckle. So we are now going to run into the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. It did start with, of course, the kickoff show, or the pre-show, as we still like to call it. They call it kickoff show. We'll call it pre-show. I don't necessarily know on that one. And it was Akira Tozawa going up against Buddy Murphy for the Cruiserweight title. And I thought this was a good match. It was very interesting that they cut to a New Day promo. They did cut to a New Day promo mid-match, but overall, I thought the match itself was very good. They definitely had some, again, these guys in the Cruiserweight division, even though they go out there on the kickoff show on a monthly basis, they go out there to try to take and steal the show about as much as they can, and they definitely had some very innovative ways of getting to spots that I think we've seen before. The Buddy Murphy pressing Akira Tozawa from the top rope, but Akira reversing into the Hurricanrana is one of those spots. Again, they came up with an inventive way of doing it. In the end, I did not feel like Buddy Murphy was going to lose this one, and it ended up being very true on that side. Buddy Murphy does hit Murphy's Law to pick up the victory in what was overall a very, very good match. And again, another good match on the kickoff show. Even though back at Survivor Series we were deemed that the kickoff show matches don't matter in any way, shape, or form, but honestly, we're getting very good matches from the Cruiserweights here on the kickoff shows, and to be fair, they're worth watching. They definitely are worth watching. And hopefully they're able to get themselves onto the main card for Mania or anything on that one. Because, again, it's one of those ones, they're going out there and putting on some really good matches, if not some of the best matches of the night. You know, get them on that main card. It just feels like it should be kind of a given on that. I wouldn't say kind of a given, but kind of a spot that maybe the Cruiserweights have earned at this point to get themselves on the main card a little bit more often than they usually do. So we'll go right into the main card, and they kick this off with an Elimination Chamber match, and it was to crown the, well, based off of everything that you go with, in the terms of the lineage of WWE, this is true. That is the first time that we had WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, but we have had WWF Women's Tag Team Champions in the past, so it's not the first time that they've had Women's Tag Team Champions, but they're reintroducing the titles, and they did it in an Elimination Chamber match. And, you know, based off of everything, I was a little bit worried going into this match because we've had only one tag team Elimination Chamber match, and it wasn't that great. I did go back and watch it to kind of see what to expect. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was. Maybe originally at that time. I thought it was at least a decent match, but again, it kind of left you a little bit worried going into it because they've only done one of these and it wasn't that great to begin with. Honestly, I thought this turned out to be a very good match in the end. I felt maybe it was a little bit slower starting on that one, but we definitely had some decent spots in there to go along with it. Maybe a little bit sloppy at times, but I also wanted to play a new little game with you guys, and we'll play this game for the men's Elimination Chamber as well. As a matter of fact, we might do it for any time that you have timed intervals to having entrants coming out into a match. So maybe we'll try to do it for the Royal Rumble next year as well. And that is the clock game. So it's kind of always been given, a given that it's usually 5 minutes in between each person in the Elimination Chamber to enter the match. I don't know if they announced it as every 5 minutes this year, or if it was just regularly timed intervals or anything on that one, but that's kind of always been the given. So we'll go ahead and play this little game here. So it did start off with Sonya and Mandy Rose going up against Sasha Banks and Bayley. The next entrants were the Riot Squad. So you had Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan. They came out, and the game that we're playing is what was the actual time in between entrants here. So this was a little bit more of an interesting one. When Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan had come in, it was at 4 minutes 24 seconds. When the Iconics came in between that one and the Iconics coming in, it was at 3 minutes and 36 seconds. And then the next entrance was a little bit closer to the 5 minute for the last two ones. And that's kind of where I felt like the match picked up as well, was after the Iconics got in there. So Carmella and Naomi entered in at 4 minutes 44 seconds after the Iconics came in. And then Nia Jax and Tamina came in after 4 minutes 54 seconds after Carmella and Naomi came in. So we're going to play that little game with the men's match too when we get to it, but it's a little game that I kind of like to take a look at every time, and maybe we'll do that for matches that we consider that would be considered squash matches in the end as well. Maybe going back and taking a look at their times. But I figured I would do this because that's usually what they have for the entrance and everything with that as well. Honestly, like I said, the first couple of entrants into the match I felt were a little bit lackluster, but it ended up picking up towards the end. I wouldn't say anything was overly bad during this match. There was maybe a couple of miscommunication spots, but nothing overly dramatically bad about the match. Honestly, I felt the match was actually really good in the end with what they did. And like I said, it definitely picked up after the Iconics got in there. At least that's how I felt like on their side. So again, I felt like it was a very good match. I did like the Tower of Doom spot, which brought the Iconics into the match. So everybody was down, and the Iconics come in, and they immediately start going for pins on everybody in the match. I thought that was a nice little good spot for them to go in there, playing themselves as a little bit of a smarter and opportunistic heels going into the match and coming into the match as well. They do get the first elimination with a very good roll-up spot as well. So you had Naomi hit her hip attack, the rear view, off of a springboard to Mandy Rose, but then Billie Kay rolls up Naomi, and then Peyton Royce does a secondary roll up to guarantee that they would get the elimination. I thought that was a good little creative spot. I like some of the stuff that the Iconics did in here. I like some of the stuff that the Riot Squad did in here as well. You had Liv and Sarah Logan both do a crossbody off the top of one of the pods, but you also had an assisted flipping stunner for Liv Morgan. So she gave Sarah Logan one of her feet, and Sarah Logan flips her over, and she does a stunner out of it. I thought that spot came off really good as well. I thought there was some good stuff inside of there. Once Nia and Tamina come in, they do what you kind of expected them to do, which was take control and be dominant for a good portion of the match, ending out eliminating Billie Kay and Peyton Royce after they pry open one of the pod doors. Because I like, again, another good spot here. You had people kind of recognizing what the Iconics were doing, the other three teams in the match, and they were about to go after the Iconics, but then all of a sudden the countdown starts coming up, and then everybody realizes Nia and Tamina were about to get in the match, and they start focusing on them. They come in, start demolishing everything, while what do the Iconics do? They run into a pod to try to prevent from being hurt in any way by Nia and Tamina. They kind of recognize them. They pry the door open, and they start doing both Tamina and Nia start throwing Billie Kay and Peyton Royce into the chamber wall by kind of almost almost using them as a, not necessarily a baseball bat, but they were kind of like that in a certain way. They throw them in the ring. You do get a little spot where Billie Kay says, "I'm sorry," to Peyton, and they both get hit with a Samoan drop, and they end out getting eliminated there. So it does come down to, and then not too long afterwards, you had Sarah Logan and Liv Morgan from the Riot Squad getting eliminated themselves. Liv takes a Samoan drop off the second rope, while both of them eat a Superfly Splash from Tamina to get eliminated. So again, they were looking dominant throughout the entire match. This comes down to Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville, Sasha Banks and Bayley, and then you have Nia Jax and Tamina being the final three teams. So again, throughout this entire time, Nia and Tamina are looking extremely dominant. And it looks like they're going to continue that, and it looks like that Nia is going to drive Bayley into one of the pods and do kind of like a spear-like move and throw her into one of the pods. Bayley gets out of the way, and Nia runs into the pod, basically knocking her out of the match. And I love the look of Tamina. It's like, uh-oh. Because then she realizes both teams are like kind of stirring a little bit, and they realize what they need to do, and they take out Tamina. Each of them do a big move to each other, or a big move to Tamina, ending with Bayley hitting the elbow drop after Sasha hits a meteor off the top. So she hits an elbow drop off the top rope, and all four of them pin Tamina, eliminating Nia and Tamina. I thought that was a good way of going, and it was kind of a more unexpected way for the match to kind of go at that point, because a lot of people were kind of expecting it to be Nia and Tamina towards the end of the match, with probably with Sasha Banks and Bayley being part of the final two teams. But it ends up being Sonya Deville, Mandy Rose, and Sasha Banks and Bayley for the final two, and I thought this came off really well. They put on like another extra small tag team match, tornado style tag team match, and I like the call back to last year, where Mandy Rose is going up to the top of the pod. Bayley's trying to get up there, but she's getting held off by Mandy Rose. Sasha gets on top of the pod, and then she hits Mandy Rose and keeps her down for a bit. And it was back to another call from last year's Elimination Chamber match, where Sasha was going to go to help Bayley up on top of the pod so they could take out Alexa Bliss. But what does Sasha do? She kicks Bayley off the pod. This time, she lifts Bayley up onto the pod, and they go after Mandy Rose. Eventually, Bayley does get knocked off of the pod, off of the pod, and Sonya Deville does a spear to Bayley, which I don't know if she was supposed to go into the glass portion, but she hit the metal portion. And it looked brutal, and basically taking Bayley out of the match. Sasha even does a great little spot where she comes in and checks on Bayley, which she goes after Sonya Deville, but Mandy Rose throws Sasha into the other pod where she hit the metal portion again, hits the Angel's Wings finisher, and Sasha kicks out. So again, Sasha's trying to fend off both Sonya and Mandy Rose. Mandy Rose is going for a wheelbarrow style maneuver, and Sonya Deville comes in for a spear. Sasha gets out of the way, so Sonya spears Mandy Rose, and then you had Sasha Banks trying to lock in the bank statement. She couldn't do it with the injured shoulder, so she improvises and uses her leg and foot to lock in the bank statement, and Sonya Deville taps out. And they win the newly instated women's tag team titles. I thought it was really good in the end. They came up with some really good stuff in the end. Like I said, maybe the beginning of the match was a little bit lackluster and ho-hum, but towards the end of the match, it was like top-notch stuff. I liked what they were definitely going for here. Sasha Banks and Bayley, I think, were a very good choice in the end. Though if they would have gone, because don't get me wrong, they teased me when Mandy Rose hit the Angel's wings on Sasha. They got you. They got you because she was like, oh, that's the finish. Oh, no, it's not. Wow. But overall, I thought it was a really good match in the end. And definitely better than the other tag team title match that we got a few years back within the Elimination Chamber. So overall, like I said, very good match. And of course, they did have a speech towards the end with that one as well. The crowd chanting for both of them as well. It was, I think, initially a mixed reaction, but it pretty much became a overall positive reaction to Sasha and Bayley picking up those women's tag team titles. And then after Sasha gave a little speech, because I guess Bayley just like no words for it, and both of them really were kind of lost up in the moment with everything as well, which you kind of expect, because based off of what a lot of people have been saying, it's been a hard fight for the women to get those tag team titles to come back to go along with it. So they kind of got lost up in the moment of everything, which, you know what, perfectly fine with that. Perfectly fine with that one. So this brings us to the SmackDown tag team titles, which was Miz and Shane McMahon going up against the Usos. And yeah, I guess Shane McMahon matches are almost becoming kind of a guilty pleasure, because this was actually a lot of fun. This was a lot of fun of a match. I did like at the beginning that Miz gets on the microphone, gives props again to Sasha and Bayley for it, but then also says everything that he was going to dedicate this match to. And then Maurice comes out and they have another announcement that they're going to have another baby. And it's like, every time that they announce it, based off of just how that couple is, it's like, you know what? That was good. That was good, and very happy style moment for like. Just, you could tell they just enjoy each other at every facet of life, and that's a great thing to see. So again, another nice little heartwarming announcement there. The match itself, like I said, was very good. And very enjoyable, with Shane attempting, definitely trying to attempt multiple coast to coast throughout the match. He does hit one on, I believe, Jimmy Uso, but Jey Uso, when he attempts a second one, catches him with a super kick. Jey Uso does eventually get taken out of the match when Miz props him onto the table, on the announce table on the outside, and lo and behold, the diving elbow from the top rope to the outside from Shane McMahon. That takes out Jey Uso and Shane. And then you have the Miz hitting the skull-crushing finale in the middle of the ring against Jimmy Uso. He goes to roll him up. He kind of does do a lax cover, and Jimmy Uso rolls him back up with a crucifix pin and picks up the victory. The Usos pick up their tag team titles back, and we begin that story going forward. Probably something between Miz and Shane. I do like the fact that it wasn't just an immediate turn, because both of them were kind of saddened by the loss, and Miz was very apologetic, and Shane was just like, kind of like, it happens, we're going to try to get him back, everything on everything to go along with that. So they were still playing babyface on it, and I like that factor that they went with that. They can take this a little bit further, maybe something into Fastlane if they're going to go that route again. And then one of them finally turns on the other one. Whether it's Shane turning on Miz or Miz turning on Shane, I guess is left to be determined. We'll see which one ends up playing that out. I think like most people, Miz is probably the better choice for being the heel, because he's just a perpetual heel for the most part on that one. I did like how shocked Miz was when he got the hot tag and he did a springboard double axe handle, and it was just like, wait, what? Miz doing a high risk maneuver? Is Shane rubbing off on the Miz type moment? And he just looks like overly shocked. It's like, did I just do that? I liked a little moment like that. But overall, good match. Good match. And after this is where the pay-per-view kind of becomes kind of ho-hum. Because there's a couple of things in here that I just didn't necessarily end up liking all that much to go along with it. There was a lot to still like about the show, but certain things either dragged, or there were certain things that they did in this show that they probably just didn't necessarily need to do in other instances. But up next, we had Lio Rush and Bobby Lashley going up against Finn Balor for the Intercontinental title. Yes, it was a handicap match, and I liked how you had an interview with Dasha backstage talking about, well, you know, he could pin Lio, who is considered the weak link of this team in the terms of in-ring, which I guess in the terms of in-ring, he's not really a weak link. He's just, you know, he's just, you know, he's just smaller than Bobby Lashley, and it was something that Finn Balor could take advantage of. I like how they play that up. They play it up as, you know, Lio plays it up as like, you know, Bobby Lashley's the steak, he's the sizzle, and, you know, everything's going to be good. And that was the story of the match as well. The story of the match was every time at some point that Lio would tag in, Finn would gain some kind of control, but when Bobby Lashley would come back in, he may take a couple of hits here and there, but he would regain control of the match on that one. So it was one of those little stories of, it's like, yeah, they're kind of playing up to that. So eventually, it looks like Finn is going to be down and out. Lashley's going to go for the spear. Lo and behold, Lio Rush tags himself in, and he goes for a frog splash, which ends out missing. Finn knocks Bobby Lashley out to the outside of the ring, and he gets Lio out there as well. He does a dive, taking both of them out. He throws Lio Rush back in, does the running dropkick and the coup de grace to pick up the victory and pick up the Intercontinental title, which I was not expecting him to pick up the Intercontinental title. I was expecting him to win the match, but I was expecting it to happen in a different way. But interesting that they put the Intercontinental title here on him here, instead of maybe waiting for a different time. But after the match, you did get the little story. You did get the storyline beat. It was like initially, Bobby Lashley was like, he was extremely frustrated. It looked like he was going to beat down Lio. Decided not to. But then he decided to beat down Lio. He ends out giving him a big spine buster and ends out leaving Lio Rush lying in the ring. We'll see if that is the full turn on that one, or if that was just kind of a frustration style moment for Bobby Lashley. But it was not the last time we saw Bobby Lashley that night, on this night. Up next, we have Ruby Riott going up against Ronda Rousey. You did have Charlotte Flair coming out before the match, cutting a promo on both Becky Lynch and Ronda, and, you know, just soaking in the heat, getting the booze in and everything to go along with it. It's kind of funny how they've turned Ronda pseudo face in this entire situation with that one, because if it was just Becky and Ronda was going to be the de facto heel regardless. But because Charlotte's just such a more magnetic heel, she's taking all the heel heat in this entire area and making Ronda a pseudo babyface in the entire situation. And it's actually being really well done. I feel like they could have done this without the match. I really do. The match was really nothing. You know, Ruby gets a bit frustrated when Ronda takes control right at the beginning, but then gets herself back in the ring, gets hit with Piper's Pit, and then the armbar for the finish. Now, the one thing about Ronda is she came out dressed as Sonya Blade, because she is doing the voice acting for Sonya Blade in the new Mortal Kombat game. So she came out cosplayed as Sonya Blade, which I thought was really cool. It was a cool look. Actually, it was more of a play off of, I think, the MK9 outfit versus the MKX outfit. It was more of a play off of the MK9 outfit than it was that one. My video game side, nerd side, coming out a little bit on that one. But that one did at least look pretty cool. But again, I felt like they could have gotten to this situation afterwards, because you had a stare down between both Charlotte and Ronda, which then Ronda kind of spots something in the crowd, and lo and behold, because of an attack that happened the night before, because Becky Lynch came out of the crowd at a WWE live event, and Charlotte ended up getting the advantage and destroying her knee some more. Becky comes out on crutches, gets into the ring, and I like how they're playing it off. Charlotte's trying to play it off as like, look at how pathetic she is, trying to get into the ring, zero help, just on crutches, everything with that one. And then Becky just looks at Charlotte and just starts waylaying her with the crutch after she stares down Ronda a little bit. And I love Ronda's reaction to it. So like, okay, I'm just gonna sit over here and watch you do this, because I don't have to do anything, or have no interest in doing anything. It's like, you want to beat up Charlotte? Beat up Charlotte. Have fun with it. And Becky was going to town with these crutches. I think it was a little bit reckless as well. You definitely saw a cut on Charlotte's arm in there. And when it came down to it as well, because it looked like we were going to have a stare down with Ronda and Becky, and Ronda picked up a crutch, and they had an initial stare down, and it's like, Becky was kind of like, you want to take some shots at Charlotte? So Ronda starts jawing at Charlotte, looking like she was about to go after her. But of course, she turned her back to Becky to go along with it. And of course, you don't trust somebody when you have your back turned with them and they have something in their hands. Becky ends up waylaying Ronda and going to town on Ronda as well. Like I said, this was a little bit reckless, because you also saw that Becky caught Ronda like right up here in the hairline. A little bit around the temple area, because you saw a little bit of blood from there as well. It was a little bit reckless in the end with some of those shots, but it looked absolutely fantastic. So, in the end, it looked fantastic, but we have to at least throw the criticism out there that maybe some of those shots were a little bit reckless. If we're going to be very critical of other people when things are very look a little bit reckless for people that we don't consider as popular. And I know Becky Lynch is wildly popular, but you gotta be fair on that one. Some of those shots looked a little bit reckless, but overall, I thought that segment ended up being very good. I don't think they needed the match portion there at all. They could have gotten there with the Charlotte promo, Ronda coming out, them having the stare down, Becky coming out. The match was not needed, and 100% honest, really hurts Ruby Riott on that one. It ended up being maybe a 90-second match. I didn't get a stopwatch out for that one, but it ended up being about a 90-second match, and it was not good for Ruby in that sense, and they didn't need to have Ruby in there to begin with. At least that's how I felt. Just how it ended up coming off. But this brings us up next to the no holds barred match, or the no disqualification match between Baron Corbin and Braun Strowman. And this took a lot longer than I expected to get where they were going. This took a lot longer than I expected to get where they were going. And it was probably the match that I at least cared about in the entire one. The match itself, I thought, the quality of the match work between Braun and Baron, I thought was pretty good. But again, it got to a point that it was like when Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley got out there. So Braun Strowman hits a running power slam through the table. Braun's going to go for the cover. Drew McIntyre's music hits. What does Braun do? He gets distracted. He doesn't go for the cover, even though it would have taken more than 3 seconds for Drew to get out to the ring. on that one. So he gets distracted. Drew has a chair. Bobby Lashley comes in through the crowd, has a chair of his own. They all beat down, and this took forever, but they beat down Braun Strowman massively. All three of them. With a little bit of spots here and there where it looks like maybe Braun was going to come back, but ends out not coming back in the end. No one comes out to help Braun either. With as long as this took, you kind of expected somebody to come out and help Braun, but it ended out not happening. And eventually, Drew, Lashley, and Corbin set up the stairs in the ring. Then they set up 2 tables, and they do a triple powerbomb to Strowman through the table, and Baron Corbin picks up the victory. Like I said, the initial portions of this match I thought were pretty good. The beatdown, it felt like it went on and on and on and on. And it took a long time. Like I said, this is that portion of the show that I felt was kind of meh. Not all that great for the show itself. Especially like the stuff with Ronda and Charlotte and Becky. I thought that stuff was good when it was all 3 of them, but you added the whole aspect that there was a match with Ruby Riott in there, and it kind of brings it down a little bit. And then of course you have Baron and Braun. That match was it was good for what it was, but in the terms of the in-ring action, but in the terms of the story, it's like, and it's still going. And now Drew McIntyre and Lashley and Corbin are back together again. I thought that broke up. Well, I guess it didn't technically break up. It just kind of ended, but now they're back together again, type thing. So that's great. And we'll see where that one ends up going as well. This is the portion of the show I didn't necessarily enjoy. Like I said, I thought the beginning of the show and the end of the show, it's absolutely fantastic. It was just that middle area was not all that great. Like I said, the Usos and Shane McMahon and Miz I thought was pretty good. I like the story that they did tell in the end for Finn Balor getting the Intercontinental title. And how they ended up playing off of that, because it does have that story continue with him and Lashley down the line. As well, so I did enjoy that. It was just like the next 2 matches kind of brought it down a little bit. Like I said, the Becky, Charlotte, and Ronda stuff with all 3 of them together was absolutely great, but again, there was no point of having the match with Ruby and Ronda in there to go along with it. So this brings us to the final match of the night, which was the Elimination Chamber match for the WWE title. And guess what? This show was going off the air before 4 hours. Wow, that was great. That was a great little surprise for everybody. But with this particular one, it was Jeff Hardy, Kofi Kingston, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Randy Orton, and Daniel Bryan going after the WWE title. You had AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy, Kofi Kingston, and Randy Orton in one of the pods, as Randy Orton was going to come out 6th because he won the gauntlet on Tuesday. And you started off with Samoa Joe and Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan cuts a very good promo before going into the match to garner himself some more heat going into that particular match. He has a very good message, but the way he delivers it, of course, makes him a heel. I like how he ducks and dodges Samoa Joe at the beginning. But back to our game from earlier, which was the entrant timing. This was a little bit more consistent in the terms of entrant timing than from the first Elimination Chamber match. And actually they go over the 5-minute mark on 2 occasions. So when Kofi entered the match, it was after from bell ring to Kofi entering, it was 5 minutes and 9 seconds. From Kofi entering to Styles entering, it was 5 minutes and 1 second. And then Jeff Hardy entering was at 4 minutes and 35 seconds. And then Randy Orton, after they got in there, was at 4 minutes and 41 seconds. So they were a little bit more consistent on that one in the terms of their timings and everything. But like I said, I think this is going to be a fun little game for other times. And like I said, I may try this for the Rumble next year as well, if everything goes properly. This Elimination Chamber match was absolutely, outside of playing that little game, this Elimination Chamber match was absolutely fantastic. They did a great job here. I like the aspect of them starting with Samoa Joe and Daniel Bryan. Samoa Joe kind of, like, you could see the marks on Samoa Joe, but he was still like no selling. It's like, okay, whatever, to Daniel Bryan. And then he would like lay in a chop of his own to Daniel Bryan. Kofi Kingston comes in next, fires up, and he ends up firing up the entire crowd. And the crowd was into Kofi the entire time. This was, somebody consider this like a Santino moment from way back when Santino Marella was in the match. I think this was done a lot better because the crowd was into him the entire match. The only time that they were really into the Santino match when it was him and Daniel Bryan in the Elimination Chamber was that ending and when the Cobra was hit. Otherwise, they weren't fully into it. Here, like, they wanted Kofi, and you could tell the entire time, and it was great. Kofi does a nice little springboard spot where he goes off to, where he gets launched to the top rope, but he springboards up to the pod when Daniel Bryan was on top of the pod. Great little spot in there. We definitely had some decent setup as well for potential either Mania matches or matches down the line with this one. The Jeff Hardy doing the Swanton off of the pod with AJ Styles draped over the ropes looked fantastic. It was probably the most brutal looking Swanton I've seen in a long time. He immediately gets hit with a running knee afterwards and gets eliminated. Randy Orton eventually gets in. He doesn't spend much time in the chamber himself. Even after getting into the chamber, he was gone not too much longer after that. He does eliminate AJ Styles though, and I forgot to even mention this because it was it wasn't as good as I thought it could have been, but Samoa Joe does get eliminated first by a combination of strikes from Kofi Kingston to AJ Styles doing a phenomenal forearm. Samoa Joe was the first eliminated. Can we at least not have this guy get eliminated first every single time in all these elimination style matches? But I guess that is the way that they play it. He talks a big game, gets eliminated first. And then AJ Styles gets eliminated by a fantastic RKO. So he goes for the phenomenal forearm on Kofi, and then you just see Randy Orton pop up, grab him, RKO. And that's probably going to set up some kind of match between the two of them down the line. And then Randy Orton gets eliminated by the Trouble in Paradise. So, as we got leaf blowers right outside, so I don't know if you're hearing that at this moment. But Kofi hits the Trouble in Paradise to Randy Orton, and he finally gets revenge for Randy Orton and the push from a long time ago to go along with it. So that brings it down to Kofi Kingston and Daniel Bryan, and again, the crowd was absolutely into this, and it was great. It was a great sequence here, good teases, much like in the Women's Elimination Chamber match. Jeez, now they're right outside my window here with that. With the Women's Elimination Chamber match, good teases of the... Yeah, it is picking up a little bit. That's better. That's better. Good teases with Kofi getting the victory and with Bryan getting the victory only for the other to get out of it. Kofi getting out of the label lock, though. Daniel Bryan didn't need to technically do a rope break there because it was a no DQ match, but it does force Daniel Bryan to give up the label lock, getting out of the running knee as well and kicking out of that at one point. They get up to the top of the pod, And you have Kofi and Daniel trading off, slamming the other one into the plexi and everything that's up on top of the pod. Eventually, Daniel Bryan gets kicked off of the top rope. Kofi goes for a big splash off the top of the pod, misses, knee plus, running knee into the from Daniel Bryan to Kofi, and he picks up the victory. And oh, the crowd was so deflated. They wanted Kofi to win that so badly, and a lot of people wanted Kofi to win that one so badly. But I thought it was a very good match, excellent Elimination Chamber match. Like I said, both Elimination Chamber matches ended up being really good in the end, and I did like the final bit. You had Rowan come back out. He was helping Daniel Bryan out to the back. Afterwards, Xavier and Big E come out, and they help Kofi come out of the ring to big thank you Kofi chants, and them kind of just staring as they were going off the air, staring to the crowd at the top of the rampway. It's like, they may continue with this, and I think I'm going to use it for the thumbnail as well. They have a shot in there where you have Kofi sit down at the edge of the chamber, and then Xavier, and you have Big E sitting right next to him, consoling him over the loss. And in the background, you have the WrestleMania sign, and they have that image there if they really want to do it, to continue on with this. But it does beg the question if Mustafa Ali did not get injured in this one, if this would have been Mustafa Ali's spot. Obviously, Kofi got this spot in the end, and he ran with it, and he did absolutely fantastic. I absolutely loved this. It was great. It was a great way of going in that one, and a very good story. Like I said, this show was bookended by a very good Elimination Chamber match at the beginning of the show with the women's tag team titles, and then closed with a fantastic Elimination Chamber match for the WWE title. You had some other good stuff. I did enjoy the Usos and Miz and Shane, and I thought the story that they told in Finn with Finn Balor and Lashley and Leo, I thought was pretty good as well. The other stuff, little lackluster in the end. A little lackluster in that one. Overall, this would, if it wasn't for those two Elimination Chamber matches, to be honest, this might have been a bad show, but overall this ended up being a very good show because both those Elimination Chamber matches delivered on what they needed to deliver. And like I said, the WWE title Elimination Chamber was fantastic. The women's tag team title Elimination Chamber was very, very good. And overall, a very enjoyable show. Very enjoyable show. So with that being said, that is going to be everything. We will come back with a traditional episode of Godsal's Turnbuckle next week. This has been my review for Elimination Chamber. I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Take care, everyone.